Hi everyone, Patricia Worby, Alchemy Therapies here, and another in my ongoing series of conversations. And today I'm delighted to introduce you to a lovely lady, Heather Dunn, who's been working with me for, I think it was 6 months to 8 months, wasn't it, Heather? And
Yes.
she's now in recovery from chronic fatigue syndrome. And so actually, Heather, you're a very interesting person. You've done loads of stuff. You've got health psychology research experience. You've done a master's. You're doing your PhD as we speak, and you are actually training to be a Chrysalis Effect practitioner as well, which I think is amazing. So welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me today.
You're welcome.
What I wanted to do was just to ask you to describe to people what it's like, having chronic fatigue syndrome. What sort of happened to you that got you to where you are now? Because I think people need to know that you can recover.
Yeah. Well, I was always really very busy. I was the go-to person if anybody needed anything or wanted anything. Heather will sort it. Heather will do it. So I was a typical A-type personality, really outgoing, busy, never stopped, full of energy. And I worked for many years as a nurse. I'd worked shift work and night duty and done that for quite a few years in a quite high pressured caring role where I was looking after older people, and there was often a lot of loss there around sort of making close connections with people, and then we lost a lot of the residents through death just because they were living in the care home. So that in itself was quite emotionally draining. I'd also worked during the Hillsborough disaster when I was nursing. I was on duty when that happened, and that was a very stressful event where we were getting lots of people coming in, obviously for support around that tragedy. And I think all these sort of things had their impact on my physical and emotional health. After I had my first child, I had postnatal depression and started there. I think that was the start of my journey in terms of emotional fatigue. And over the years, then I just kept pushing through, like you do, living a normal life, bringing up the children, and a series of 2 marriages and divorces, and carrying on again, and then being a single parent and looking after the kids. And then I went to university and I studied at university at the age of 45, and I pushed myself there because I was interested in psychology. So I'd left nursing and went into psychology. All the time, you've got the bills to pay, and I'd got debt from previous marriages that I had to deal with as well. And the toll of it all eventually had its effects on my physical and mental health. I sought help over the years from various people trying to keep myself going. And then I think it was around 2014, 15 when I was on my third serious relationship, about to get married. Unfortunately, I found just in time that he wasn't being faithful to me. And that was the point where I actually crashed, because I had everything to deal with again. I had to start again, find another job. And it was a very stressful time. And what I started to find was I did get into work doing research and university research. And I was functioning quite well for probably about a year, but then the impact seemed to affect me, where I was just getting more and more tired no matter what I did. I couldn't seem to find the energy that I'd always had. I was still taking antidepressants. They were keeping me on an even keel emotionally. But I just became physically more fatigued and started, over a period of about a year, to gradually notice that my work was being affected. My cognition was infected, in that I couldn't concentrate. My work was, which was working in university research. So obviously it was obvious when things were starting to go wrong at work. And I ended up feeling actually like I'd got early onset dementia. I was convinced that that's what I'd got. I looked up all the symptoms, and it was very clear: the brain fog, the lack of concentration, the forgetfulness, the physical fatigue as well. At this point, was starting to have an impact, and I ended up having about 6 months off work, and they were very understanding. And I had a graded return to work, and I was working part-time, and just about managing to keep my head above water financially. And then both my parents died within very close succession. And that had a massive impact on me again and set me back in what I now know is another crash phase of chronic fatigue. I did eventually return back to work again part-time during last year, so 2019, for about 6 months. And I returned to studies and returned to finishing my PhD. But the actual effort that went into that again led me to have another crash. So I was in this perpetual boom and bust where I was pushing myself and then just kept crashing. And it was December 2019 when I finally decided that I needed to stop and just get well. And it was in January 2020 that I discovered the Chrysalis Effect program. And I went online, and it was just like returning home almost to people and an environment that understood exactly how I felt. Everything that was being shown to me on the program and in the information that I was receiving and the support I was receiving from the practitioners in there and the other people that are experiencing chronic fatigue, I just knew it was the right place I needed to be to recover. And for the whole of this year, I have been fortunate enough to be in a position where I've been able to not work. I'm engaged again. I'm going to be married again next year. I'm in a very supportive relationship, and he's looking after me in the sense that I'm not having to work. And that means that I've spent since January just focusing on the whole of my life and getting it back in balance again. And that's what the Chrysalis Effect program has taught me. It's about returning the balance and learning how to adjust the way you live to one that will suit your recovery and sustain that recovery forever.
Yeah.
I did have COVID, I believe, in April, and that did set back my journey considerably because I was bedbound for 3 weeks with it, and it took me quite a lot of time to recover back from that, I guess, another crash in the middle of my recovery. But since then, had I not already had a few tools in my box from the Chrysalis Effect program and the support of the program, I know it'd have taken me much, much longer to recover from that. So right from the point of having COVID in April to following the recovery program again, by the end of August, I felt I'd done enough work in terms of my physical health and my emotional health as well to be able to move forward and finally finish the PhD. There's a very little bit left to do. And what I discovered I wanted to do through the journey is give back to the community and support others through that recovery pathway. Having that experience myself and my nursing and my psychology background, and having had a daughter who's also recovered within, she's on the way to recovery as well from chronic fatigue. I know that it is possible for others to do the same, but I was floundering for a good 3 or 4, if not more, years trying to find the resources I needed through the NHS, and they just weren't available. So as a practitioner in training, I'm hoping to do the same for other people. So I'm doing wellbeing coaching training at the moment, and then I'll be doing the practitioner training shortly afterwards. I'm finishing my PhD and my brain is working again, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It is possible to recover. I genuinely felt this time 12 months ago that there wouldn't be a chance for me to ever return to that level of learning or a career that would be as fulfilling as the one that I'm now embarking on. And I genuinely couldn't have done it without the Chrysalis Effect program and the practitioners in there for their support.
Yeah, of which I am one. So,
Indeed.
so some of the things you've raised there are really important for people to understand, I think, and just to sort of pick apart a little bit what you've said. The A-type personality is really common, isn't it, for this particular condition? And what I often tell people is that we're often accused of being lazy, aren't we? You know, you just need to try harder. Well, but that's actually so insulting, because we're the people that give 110% on everything anyway.
Yeah.
And it's this pushing through style that will tend to create the boom and bust, because your nervous system has all this emotional stuff bubbling away under the surface, doesn't it? And particularly what you said, 2 divorces, then your parents, and plus all the ongoing stress of your PhD and the kind of work you've been doing, is sort of, your nervous system only has a certain capacity, and then it overshoots, and then you crash. That's what happens. So it's such a common scenario that we are emotionally trying to cope with something, but we don't have the strength at that time to deal with it, and so it gets sort of buried and it gets pushed down, and that's when physical symptoms appear, is when we're not dealing with the emotional stuff. And so I think you've just done magnificently to get where you are, and you do look brilliantly well, actually. It's so lovely to see you looking so well and happy. I think we started working, it must be before you got COVID, because I remember you telling me you'd had it. So must have been early this year, I think, we began.
I started in the Chrysalis Effect program in January, and soon after I signed up with a nutritionist to do some work around my getting my IBS under control. That was one of the symptoms. And just to see what was underlying there. And I've been working on that for probably about 6 weeks. And it was probably in February I approached you, towards the end of February, because I recognised from the material that was in the programme, the things that I was starting to learn about, what causes and triggers chronic fatigue over a period of time, or it can be something that's quite sudden. It could be a virus, for example, but usually you recognize the point where you've crashed, and all the historic sort of things I recognized that had happened to me in childhood, throughout my lifetime, the way that I was an A-type personality, always pushing myself, a perfectionist, always wanting to do the best I could. I recognized that through doing some work around releasing this embodied emotional stuff that was actually manifesting itself in my body as fatigue and joint pains and brain fog and everything else that it impacted on in my digestive system. Everything was related to the emotional stuff. And once I realized that, I recognized the need to do work in that area. And it's very empowering to you learn so much about yourself, and also you have tools that you are able to carry forward with you from the sessions that you have with practitioners through the program, that will last you forever. And as soon as you recognize you're starting to get a little bit out of balance again, you've got that available to you to be able to release any of the emotional stuff that's coming up for you at any point moving forward. So it's really, really valuable work that we did together.
You've raised some important points about, it's not just a quick fix, is it? It's not just about get rid of the symptoms and then carry on as you were.
No, it's adapting your life completely, really, in very gradual steps, just little bit by little bit, adding to your little toolbox of life that enables you to fix things as they come along, you know, like you would do any DIY project around the house, you know, that if you've got the right tools, it's so much easier than trying to stick a picture up with a spoon, for example.
Yeah.
You know, it's you learn so much about how to move forward and live in harmony with your fatigue, and to embrace it. And once you stop fighting it, at the point you stop fighting it is the point that you can start to move forward.
Now,
and I think, yeah, for years I've been fighting it.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult for a lot of people to understand, isn't it? Because we're taught that diseases are things to be fought, like cancer is the war against cancer, and chronic fatigue, we have to fight it in order to, I guess, survive. But we don't recover that way, because what you have to do is work from the root causes, and, as you say, make those incremental changes to your lifestyle, your beliefs, your behaviors, and deal with the emotional stuff, which is such a big part of the condition. The unresolved emotions, I believe, are one of the main factors, because they create a stress response in the body. And so, yeah, we're not saying that you have to be, stop believing you could be better and just go, oh, well, that's it then. We are saying you have to accept who you are at a fundamental level and work in harmony. I love the way you said that, in harmony with yourself, and embrace the person that you are. And for a lot of people, they don't know who they are, do they?
Yeah. I know what I was doing, Patricia, was I was beating myself up. We're very hard on ourselves. The typical person who has chronic fatigue, just you're constantly beating yourself up, because in my situation, you know, where I wasn't able to work, I was feeling guilty that I wasn't able to work. I was stressing that there wasn't any money coming in. I've got to get back to work. I've got to do this. I've got to. And always pushing, and instead of just taking a little step back, and it's often having the strength to trust in the process that you can and you will recover, but it will require your investment in yourself. I think you have to invest in your own health instead of putting everybody else first. For once, you need to start and think of prioritizing yourself, and in that way, surrounding yourself with people who are prepared to support you in that journey. And that's one of the hardest things, because often we've got critics and people that are holding us back and pushing us down, and they're the naysayers. They're the ones, oh, what's wrong with you? You should be feeling better by now. I can't. Because it's not something that you can see. It's and unless you've experienced it, you can't truly understand it. I think you need to have people who truly are supportive to get you through the journey. And it's a process of learning to recognize the people who aren't helpful, and I'm not saying you never see them, but to minimize your contact with them so that you can move forward. And there are so many little things like that. And I've learned things around my environment in my own home, things that you can take control of. They might be the smallest things, but every tiny little thing that you do on your journey to recovery helps towards this sum total of getting your life back in balance and your health back in balance. And that's what it is. It's about addressing the imbalance, I think.
Yeah, beautifully put. Because it's, you know, modern medicine tells us that any disease is the result of one thing. You know, it's an acute model of disease, and it says, you know, you just need to find the thing that is wrong. Whereas what we now know is this is a multi-systemic disease. It affects, it's not even a disease in the conventional sense, it's a condition that develops as a response to low energy delivery in the body, hence the brain fog, hence the digestive issues. And that comes about because something is out of balance in your life, and you're not dealing with the things that you need to resolve. And like you said, you know, you're pushing, and you're also really critical of yourself, and that's another common scenario. So nothing's ever good enough. A lot of perfectionist tendencies will creep in, and I you know, I'm wearing the t-shirt myself here, so I'm not saying this just you. Definitely had very, very high you know, I wanted to do the best I could in every situation, you know, very high ideals for myself, and if I ever failed, I would be very, very hard on myself. And so you've got that push pull on your nervous system, you know, got to keep going, got to keep going. Oh, but I failed again. I'm a mess, I'm a failure. And so the nervous system cannot regulate well in that environment. It's like having your foot on the brake and the gas at the same time, as what the Americans say. You know, it's like, you know, and you're kangarooing down through your life. You know, you're just finding it very, very difficult to find that ease and that sense of connection with yourself. So you've obviously you found a gradual incremental improvement in your health to the point now where you want to actually use your experience to help other people, which I just think is just phenomenal. And of course the same was true for me. You know, I became a practitioner after recovery myself, although I didn't have Chrysalis Effect at the time. It wasn't invented, it wasn't there. And we should say for the viewers and listeners that Chrysalis Effect is an online recovery program that people can sign up to, and it sort of guides them through with step-by-step exercises and information and audios and so on. And then if people want additional help from practitioners, there are a number of practitioners who are now able to, using health coaching methods, take you through and give you that extra support that you may need. So so your story is by no means unusual. It has all the elements of chronic fatigue syndrome, doesn't it? The high stress, the high responsibility and expectations of yourself, the pushing through, not dealing with things emotionally. And I was the same, you know, not able to metabolize my emotions, didn't really want to look at them because they were too uncomfortable. And so it really is about coming into balance with all of that and learning a new way to live. And that's why it's not a quick fix, it's a total reorganization. But it's not painful, is it? It's actually quite a profound journey, I've found, for most people.
Yeah, I found it really positive. Without sounding gushing or, you know, out there and extreme, I did genuinely learn a lot about myself, and I thought I'd got quite a good insight into how I tick, and I thought I knew myself really well. But a lot of and this is not apportioning blame to anyone, but a lot of the messages that I was sending myself about, keep going, push yourself, you've got to work hard, all these messages came from experiences throughout my lifetime, especially, you know, you're very susceptible to the messages that you receive as a child, and those things sit with you for the rest of your life. And experiences, as I said, there's nobody to blame for it, but it's a way of recognizing how you've come to the point in your life that you've crashed, all the stages along the way that have influenced that. And I just didn't realize what had affected me at such a deep level. And I'd lost touch with my body that was telling me and screaming out to me that there's something that you need to change, because, you know, what you're doing isn't the right thing for your health. And through a sort of a journey of sort of self-realization, almost, of myself, my environment, everything that affects me, surrounds me, everything that I do every day, all the beliefs that I hold, have all influenced the way that my body is sending these signals to me, through pain and aches and brain fog and all the other symptoms and IBS, and everything that I was experiencing was my body shutting down and saying, right, okay, we're stopping now because you've got to do something. And I think we all reach the point where we're ready to do something and listen, because you've got to hit bottom before you can come up.
Yes, indeed.
and I definitely hit bottom. And you might come up and down and go up and down. It's a bit like a wave, but eventually that wave will become more shallow and the waters will settle. And when it settles, that's when, where I am, I feel at the moment, is that the water's just settled and you get a different perspective. It doesn't feel rough. It doesn't feel like you're drowning. It doesn't feel like you're swimming against the tide. It feels like you're sort of nice and relaxed and able to just gently float and enjoy it. And that's sort of what I feel has happened to me just in the last 12 months, is that, and I've been able to do that through learning about why it happens, what was happening to me, and how I could change things for the better.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that knowledge, you're just going to carry on.
Yeah, you're going to flounder because, as you say, the messages around you, either from family and friends, well-meaning, but ultimately not very understanding, because unless you've had it, you don't really know that it's not a matter of just snapping out of it. And also the medical model that we're working within that says you need to deal with the symptoms, you deal with each symptom as it arises instead of looking at the foundation and the root causes. So I think you're absolutely right. I think learning what it is and what the messages are takes away the fear and the contraction into fear that keeps a lot of people stuck and believing that they'll never recover. And so it is a wonderful story, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's just so great to see you doing so well, and as you admit yourself, you're not out of it completely. You still got a few bumpy bits every now and again, and you know, we need to look after ourselves as an ongoing thing now. We don't just say, oh well, I'm recovered, that's it, I can go back to eating crap food, you know, pushing myself, over stressing about everything and not looking at my emotions. We learn a new way of being, and it becomes a life habit to replace the older habits that said you're not good enough, you have to work so hard beyond your capabilities, you know, your physical capabilities. So I think learning the why and the how, I think that's what I'm going to take from what you've just said. The why it happened in the first place, and the how to keep yourself healthy in the present and in the future. And so it is an absolute change in orientation, as you said, a real self-realization journey. And it's important for people to know that everybody can do this. There's nothing special that you have to be or do. You just follow the kind of the instructions and some of the information that you're given, and you do the exercises, and it's the consistency, isn't it? I think, and the support. Yeah. And you've had good support from myself, but you've also had other people, buddies, and all the people on the group. And that's one of the things I think that takes this to the next level, is that you don't feel alone anymore.
It is. And within the support that you get as well from practitioners and from other people that are experiencing the same as you are, it's that not feeling alone. It's the understanding that you got, and it gives you the hope. Seeing other people that have also gone through this journey has been the thing that inspired me, because I didn't know anybody else that had experienced what I'd experienced.
No.
Everyone's experience is slightly different, but there's an underlying thread there of people understand, people have recovered, and anyone can do that if you've got the determination and you're ready for it.
Wow, I couldn't say it better myself. So that's a wonderful point, I think, at which to wrap up. And I hope other people feel like I do, that you're an inspiration, and you know that we can all do this. We can all apply these rules and these new ideas, not just to chronic fatigue syndrome. I really think this model works for many, many different chronic conditions, long-term conditions. And I know that you're a practitioner in training, so very likely soon enough you're going to be qualified, and people will be able to contact you. And I know we'll post the contact details when that happens. But for the moment, I just want to thank you so much for agreeing to take part and for letting me ask you all these difficult questions, and all the difficult questions I had to ask you when we were actually working together as well. Yeah. I do want to say, people, I say this at the beginning, it's simple, but it's not easy, because it does require you to really be willing to focus on the things that you have avoided through most of your life. But we do give you loads of support for that, and we do try and make it, I wouldn't say we make it fun, but we make it as palatable as possible, so that you can do it in small increments and you're not overwhelmed, and that's so important. Well, okay, I'm sure there'll be lots of questions that will come our way from this, but for now, I'm going to thank you so much. And people, if you've got any questions, please post below, and as usual, do subscribe. Okay, bye for now.